Tonight, a warning a lot of people probably could have predicted about Instagram and the damage it can do to teenage girls. But Facebook, which owns Instagram, knew about it and sat on the information. We have every angle covered tonight. Also, a bombshell from a book about the final days of the Trump administration, the links the chairman of the Joint Chiefs went to prevent a war with China. Links so great, some are calling for his resignation, and not just Trump supporters. Also, talk about a fashion statement, AOC turning heads for the message she sent at the $30,000 a head Met Gala. Is it hypocrisy or bravery? Great to have you with us. The Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening, or maybe we should say like, heart, or swipe right, because that's how a lot of us communicate nowadays. In our Pulse of America tonight, there's a pretty good chance everyone watching right now has a Facebook page. 2.9 billion people do globally. Also a good chance you have a smartphone, and you probably get an alert once a week telling you how much screen time you're averaging. And if you're like me, you're horrified by that number. Yesterday, my screen time was 6 hours and change. I have no idea how that happens, but it does. And it does for teenagers even more. According to a report in Insider, U.S. teenagers may spend as much as 9 hours per day looking at screens. And tonight, we have new insight into how damaging it can be, especially for teenage girls. Here's a headline from the Wall Street Journal. Facebook knows Instagram is toxic for teen girls. The influencers, the perfect bodies, the idyllic lifestyle, the fear of missing out. Some 22 million American teenagers log on to Instagram each day. Researchers inside Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, found 32% of teen girls said that when they felt badly about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. It's not necessarily surprising that Instagram is harmful to young teenage girls, but now we know Facebook has known it. We all depend on our phones. We're almost addicted to them, and social media knows it. As the Journal article points out, they also know we can't seem to quit. And that's where we start tonight. Joining me now, Social Flow CEO Jim Anderson and business and technology journalist Shibani Joshi. Both of them are parents. Shibani, let's start with you. I don't know how old your kids are, but if they're old enough to be on Instagram, would you let them?
I am trying to push that away as long as I can. My oldest daughter is 11. She's very familiar because her friends have accounts on Instagram. She's pushing me to get her an account, and I keep saying no because of the news that we heard today is no surprise. I think about this, Joe. I mean, you spend 6 hours a day on social media or on the internet. I do the same, probably more, and I come away feeling pretty crummy when I see how perfect people's lives are. Now think about applying this onto young, impressionable young girls. 32% of teens say that when they felt bad about their bodies, they felt worse by looking at Instagram. I mean, this is stuff that we know, and now we're just getting it quantified. And I think this is something that we should be taking very seriously.
Jim, we met one of your daughters, and I'm curious how you handled it and what you would tell parents who are trying to navigate this right now.
Yeah, Joe, I do have a 17-year-old daughter. You met her, and she is on Instagram. And, good luck trying to keep her off of Instagram. Right. So I think that's one of the challenges we face. I've been dealing with social media for more than a decade, and I've always thought it's kind of a mirror of society, right? If you want to see why is there such polarization and negativity on Facebook, well, look at society. Look at politics right now. The challenge, I think, and we're seeing this with these statistics, is it's become a little bit of a funhouse mirror. It's very distorting, right? And so the fact that we've got these algorithms, we've got these devices, within a foot of us, most, 24 hours a day, really just distorts things. And I think it really becomes a problem that teenagers have a hard time controlling, parents have a hard time controlling, and ultimately we have to rely on the platforms such as Instagram to really get a handle on this.
Shibani, it's almost like it's new every year. You have a different age of kids who are discovering this brand new world. And as Jim pointed out, it's really hard, if not impossible, for them not to want to be a part of it or realize how damaging and dangerous it can be.
Absolutely. There's a peer pressure effect and a social networking effect that runs across the gamut, and it's starting younger and younger and younger. And this is big business to Instagram and to its parent company, Facebook. I mean, that is the angle that I'm always very acutely aware of. I mean, Instagram to Instagram, our teens, our preteens, our business numbers, right? And they need to keep their pipeline growing. They need to make sure that we are addicted, for lack of a better word, that the stickiness is there, that there's fresh content, and that their user base continues to grow. They need more and more young people on there, so that people, their numbers continue to generate. They get ad revenues. They continue to make money off of different profit generating ideas, and that is troublesome. And they are trying their best to come up with these different ideas, like the Instagram Lite, coming up with different AI interfaces to make sure that younger people aren't on there. But you know what everybody knows is that the teens and the preteens want what they can't have, and you're not going to be able to keep them off. It is something that we have to work with technology companies and as parents in dual force to make sure that our kids are safe.
Jim, the other thing Shivani touched on, there's some of the things they're trying to do, or at least considering. I mean, do you give Facebook any credit, at least, for acknowledging that they have studied this? But also, I know they've looked into different things where they maybe try to limit the number of likes you can put on it, different things they're trying. Are they trying enough, and is it working?
Well, I do think they do get some credit for trying. I mean, this report that was written up in the Wall Street Journal was, in fact, commissioned by Instagram. So I don't think they have their heads completely in the sand that this is not a problem. And you mentioned the likes. You know, right now, if you're an Instagram user, you can actually choose to go and hide the likes of your posts. And I think that's actually a pretty powerful feature, right? You can't legislate or force, you know, popularity, right? Popularity is what it is. And if you and I were in high school and I did a post and I got 10 likes and you did a post and you got 100 likes, well, you're more popular, and that's going to make me feel bad. That's been true for a long, long time, long before Instagram. I think Instagram has got a problem, sort of like McDonald's has a problem with obesity and unhealthy eating, right? They didn't cause the problem. It's not their fault per se, but they're a contributor to it, and they have an obligation, especially when you're talking about teenagers and children, to do more to try to combat it.
Right. I think we lost Shivani there. I'm not sure. Either that or that was my screen time that popped up over her face. Jim, the other thing that stood out to me in this article, among many things, was the fact that they talked about this explore button on Instagram and how that can sort of lead, especially young, vulnerable teenage girls, down a rabbit hole of trouble. I mean, there's an algorithm for everything, essentially. Why not try to, I guess, essentially send more positive content?
I think that's a great point. And ultimately, you know, Instagram is a business. I think Shivani was exactly right. And they ultimately need to do what's in their long-term interest. And in general, you don't grow your business by harming your consumers. There have been notable exceptions in the past, but that's not a good long-term growth strategy. So I think what Instagram is doing is trying to understand what can we do. And these kinds of studies that are being written about is part of the journey to try to understand what can we do to reduce some of the negative behaviors. Obviously, we have a business to run. We have business metrics to hit. But how do we make it maybe a little bit less harmful? And I think exactly what you're saying, trying to find the areas that are maybe most problematic, and that Explorer feature where, you know, you go in and you basically feel inadequate compared to everybody else. That's a real problem. And I think they recognize that. And this press, of course, is just going to focus their attention that much more on what they need to do. Right.
Shivani, the thing that's really troubling about this, and this is the fallout, are the mental health impacts of these things. I mean, we talk about teenage depression. We talk about even the possibility of suicide. Some of the mental health impacts of these are really devastating.
They are, and they're coming at a really, really crucial time right now as well, when so many of our kids have been isolated from one another. A lot of kids, some kids are not even back in school, and this is their way to reconnect socially. They're doing this even if they're back in the classroom after a year and a half of being isolated from one another. We have mental health issues that we need to be discussing no matter what. And then social media is just adding to the pressure of all of this. And these are the conversations that we need to, as a society, start having with our children also about reality checks. That photoshopped image of that woman or of that man is not real. We need to be teaching that and having reality checks with our children very early on, giving them some ability to exercise self-control, which is, and discipline around technology, which is very difficult. But as a parent, that's something that I also try to put in place for my kids with screen time limits and at least some sense of involvement. I mean, the responsibility goes both ways, and we know this with big technology companies. You can't rely on them to put all the safety guards into place. We have a responsibility for our children as well.
Jim, this follows a report yesterday that this can be an impact for adults as well. That as you well know, it said that social media isn't necessarily the reason for the political divide in this country, but it has widened it and pushed it, more troublingly, toward violence.
Yeah, it's interesting. These algorithms, which are incredibly powerful and in many ways, you know, kind of amazing, right? It gives you the kind of content you want to see. What I see on Facebook is very different than what you see on Facebook because we have different interests, different friends, and we respond to different things. So that sounds like it should be a positive, and it generally is a positive. It gives me tailored content suited to me, but it also increases the filter bubble. If I have a particular political view, you have a particular political view, we don't necessarily have to share each other's ideas. I just get my political content, you get your political content, and if it's diametrically opposed, it makes it really hard for us to have a civil conversation.
I just wonder, Shibani, because I've gone through it. Our kids are grown, but some had more trouble with it than others. And looking back on it, it's easy to say, you know, it was just horrible for some of them, the ones who were more into it anyway. And I guess is there something redeeming that we can all look back at and say that there were good things about social media, or are we going to look at it and say it really has impacted and in some ways ruined a generation?
Well, you know, I think that there are definite positive aspects of social media. One thing that I believe is some aspect of social media is here to stay. We're never going to be able to go back to a time, or it might be a different app and it might be a different company, but so many elements of this are here to stay. And just think about how we have connected with one another thanks to the help of social media during one of the most trying periods over the last, who knows how long. I was kept afloat with my community, with my friends, with my family, thanks to the help of social media during the pandemic. If you think about the upsides, there is this ability to connect, to see into one another's lives that during very difficult times like the pandemic make us realize we are thankful for technology, for this ability to have visibility and connection to one another. But again, this reality distortion and the conversations about it are, I think, the next step in really realizing the full potential of social media.
Jim, I know you dive deep into all of these numbers. Is there one platform that is, I guess, descending while others are ascending? And do you think there will be more that will come that will follow these at some point down the road?
Yeah, I don't know about descending. I mean, I think Facebook itself, the blue app, you know, of course, Facebook owns Instagram. That is the gold standard, if you will, 2.9 billion users. And a lot of people say, oh, Facebook is so yesterday, but everybody's on it.
Right.
And I think the one that's ascending, Instagram is certainly doing pretty well, but TikTok is the one. And it is very powerful algorithms. It also happens to be owned by a Chinese company, which introduces a whole other set of concerns, but it is ridiculously popular among young people.
Yeah.
I've gotten on it. I have to tell you, it is very addictive is an overused word, but it is a very enticing app. And before you know it, you find yourself with that screen time. I just spent 30 minutes watching TikTok videos.
Yeah, well, and that's more performance-based. I think the others that are concerning, Instagram in particular, are these body image problems that we've seen. Listen, it's been a great conversation. Thank you both for your time. Social Flow CEO Jim Anderson and business and tech journalist Shibani Joshi. Great to have you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
A bombshell from a book about former President Trump's final days in office. The lengths his top military head went to prevent a war with China. Lengths so great, some are calling for his resignation. That's ahead. Also, money for the Taliban? Apparently so, at least according to Secretary of State Antony Blinken. But should American tax dollars be going to Afghanistan? Don't forget to follow us on social media at the Donlon Report on Twitter. New information coming out tonight ahead of the release of an explosive new book about the last days of the Trump presidency. Military leaders were apparently worried former President Trump would, quote, go rogue after losing the election. Journalist Bob Woodward and Washington Post reporter Robert Costa's book is called Peril. In it, they say Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley took top secret action to limit Trump's Trump's ability to order a military strike or launch nuclear weapons. Joining me now, former spokesperson for the State Department, Morgan Ortagus, and former CIA Covert Operations Officer, Mike Baker. Thank you both for being here. All right, Morgan, you were in the administration. What's your reaction to this?
Well, I was on maternity leave at the end, but I came in the last 2 weeks and I was with Mike Pompeo for the past 2 years of the administration, almost every single day. And this is just not a conversation that I heard him having at all. He'll have to, of course, answer for it. But as typical with the Woodward books, there's a lot of hype, a lot of scandal. You got to sell the books. Saying that, if any of these allegations are true, I would encourage Congress to finally exercise their oversight ability over the Joint Chiefs. And it's not just about this book. You know, in general, there was always frustrations in the administration with the Joint Chiefs. There was, you know, these internal bureaucratic arguments that their staff was holding, you know, plans and different things that other agencies needed to be able to see, that they were holding them too closely. That's nothing more than internal bureaucratic fighting, which is normal, I think, in any administration. I'm sure it's going on right now. But I would say what does matter is that we really haven't had proper civilian oversight over the Joint Chiefs for a very long time. Mark Milley has proven to be quite the controversial chairman over the past year, and I think that he needs to go up to Congress and he needs some serious and tough questions answered. And if any of this is true, what's alleged in the book, there's a lot of legal issues that Congress needs to explore as well. Whether you like it or not, the duly elected president is the commander-in-chief, and unelected bureaucrats in Washington don't make those decisions.
Mike, General Milley was so worried he called his Chinese counterpart twice, once after the election and then once again after the Capitol riots on January 6th. And I guess basically told the Chinese that if the U.S. were to launch a strike, he would call and give them a heads up. What do you make of all of this?
Yeah, if that is accurate, if it's actually true, then it's fairly remarkable. And as Morgan just pointed out, needs to be addressed in a very rational manner up on the Hill. I don't think we actually are capable of rational action up on the Hill at this point. So I'm a little bit worried about how these allegations will be investigated. Look, you have to be very careful when looking into allegations from any book. And as Morgan also pointed out, Bob Woodward's books, you know, as do others, they've got to sell. And so in order to get that book deal, you've got to promise something rather salacious. And so I think at this point, people need to step back, take a breath. Look, the Senate's already talking about this. It came up in a couple of conversations up on the Hill today. But it's a rather astounding allegation. And I am worried about the continuing trend towards the politicization. I knew I was going to have trouble with that word.
We all do, Mike. It's all right.
Up within the military and other elements of the U.S. government that are supposed to be and should always be apolitical.
All right, let's. You talked about the Hill. Let's get to day 2 of these hearings. Secretary of State Blinken before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee today, and Rand Paul asked him about U.S. money earmarked for Afghanistan. We'll play a clip here.
There's still about $10 billion out there that was designated for the Afghan government. Can you pledge today, without equivocation, that the Biden administration will not release any of this money to the Taliban?
Absent the Taliban making good on the commitments and expectations of the international community that I've outlined previously, that's correct.
So, Morgan, did that surprise you? What do you think we should do with that money?
Well, first of all, it was a lot of diplomatic mumbo jumbo that I always fought against at the State Department, against us using that language, because it's designed to say nothing to the American people. And I think it's almost designed to confuse the American people. And
what
I think
did
we should
mean,
be
Morgan?
very, very clear.
Did he say that the money would be there if the Taliban proved themselves?
I think that's essentially what he was implying, and that's going to be a big problem because the Taliban is designated under an executive order as a terrorist group. They're not designated as a foreign terrorist organization, an FTO, by the State Department, but they are designated by an executive order. And they're, of course, designated at the United Nations as a terrorist group. And of course, we're seeing intrepid reporters who are in Afghanistan right now who are documenting murders and human rights abuses and women going back, under the veil, so to speak, literally and figuratively in Afghanistan. So I'm not, the whole problem with the Biden administration's philosophy as it relates to the Taliban is they decided that the leverage that they were going to use was economic leverage. In the Trump administration, Mike Pompeo always had military leverage on the table. He knew that you couldn't negotiate with the Taliban without a gun to their head. Again, literally and figuratively speaking here. And so when you lose the military leverage and you try to rely on economic leverage only with the Taliban, the problem with that is, guess what? Chinese and Russians have a lot of money. They can come right in and fill the void if we want to. It's a silly strategy.
Right. Mike, speaking of intrepid reporting, let's talk about this drone strike in Kabul. We thought we killed an ISIS fighter. That was the word, at least. Now, the New York Times is calling that into question, saying it was actually a man who'd worked for a U.S. aid group who was carrying water, and there were 7 kids reportedly killed as well. Here's what Representative Michael McCall from Texas said on our broadcast last night.
If we can't even get it right when we have a presence on the ground, how in the world are we going to hit a target that is a threat, a future bin Laden, if you will, or al-Qaeda, that's going to have an external operation? How can we have any accuracy without anybody on the ground, both military or intelligence?
What do you think happened, Mike, and why aren't we hearing more about this?
Yeah, well, look, there were questions that were starting to be raised shortly after this drone strike. And I think McCall is correct in the sense that one of the bigger issues here, aside from investigating and finding out if, in fact, this was a misdirected strike and the tragedy occurred, is this question of, okay, how do we carry out surgical strikes in the future with this over-the-horizon phrase, which has become popular in Washington, D.C., to talk about our capabilities. And it's a real problem. I suspect that, look, we've always had imperfect intelligence in Afghanistan, even during our largest presence there. It's the nature of the beast and the way that intel works, particularly in a hostile environment. But I think what we're going to have to worry about at this stage of the game is, look, how good is our network, our stay-behind network that we've been theoretically, and I'm sure we have been working on for the past 20 years. Do we have that network in place, or did a lot of those assets choose to come out with the withdrawal? That's a real problem. And look, Obama, Biden, during their 8 years of owning the Afghan war during the Obama presidency, while Joe Biden was vice president, they relied heavily on the drone strike as a weapon against terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan, because they chose not to do the heavy lift of picking up targets off the battlefield and then interrogating them for intelligence. They didn't want the trouble of holding on to high value targets, because as they, it raises all sorts of issues, but that's how you keep the intel pipeline moving. That's how you keep your intel good. So, Joe Biden as president now is well familiar with drone strike capabilities, but they have got to clear this one up. They've got to be transparent in their investigation. They've got to be very clear about what's happened. But again, at the 30,000 foot level, we've got to really worry about how we ensure our national security going forward.
Mike Baker, Morgan Ortegas, always glad to have your voices with us. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you know the saying, dress for success. How about dress for taxes? AOC's Met Gala fashion statement turned a lot of heads. Will her tax the rich statement help Democrats pass their new $1 trillion plan? And it's recall night in California. Can Gavin Newsom hold off Larry Elder for the top office in the Golden State? We'll have that and more ahead. To politics now. Democrats are working to pass a sweeping $3.5 trillion budget, along with a way to pay for it. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has an answer. Tax the rich. The New York Congresswoman wearing this dress to a high-profile gala Tuesday night in Manhattan. Democrats are proposing tax hikes on businesses and wealthy individuals to pay for the deal, as they also jockey for a final price tag to get moderates and possibly Republicans on board. Congresswoman Karen Bates, a Democrat of California, part of the discussions, and she joins us now. Congresswoman, it's Karen Bass. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name there. So we appreciate you having us. Right. The dress was beautiful. We can all agree on that, I guess. Are you on board with the message?
Well, I mean, I think that whole event that they're at that's characteristic of that event. I would not call that public policy. And so I think if she wanted to wear that there, I think that's fine. But in D.C., it's a different situation.
Not something you would have worn, I take it. Not in D.C. anyway, right?
No. No.
All right, so you won the Profile Encourage Award in 2010 for your work, and it was bipartisan work. That's why you won the award on the California budget crisis, and now you have to do some bridge building among Democrats, and there are a lot of players involved, Congresswoman. I don't need to tell you that, from Bernie Sanders to AOC, Joe Manchin, and others. How do you do it?
Well, first of all, I think you have a leader like Speaker Pelosi, so I don't have any doubt that it will get done. But it's just so important for us to move forward with this. Infrastructure is a lot more than bridges and roads, and we absolutely need that. We should have world-class infrastructure in this country as opposed to bridges that are falling and highways that are crumbling. But we also have to pay attention to the human infrastructure. And, you know, part of that is because over the last many years, we've been cutting the safety net. We've been cutting a lot of social programs. And it's really time to restore that, especially coming off of the economic consequences of the pandemic.
Do you think it gets through with $3.5 trillion, or do you think it gets cut down?
No, I do think that it gets through because $3.5 trillion is already the number that it's been cut down to. Now, we need to see what Manchin wants. Maybe he needs a little extra support in West Virginia. That might make him swallow the pill of $3.5 trillion a little easier. So I think we'll have to see what happens with that.
What does? Use your crystal ball. Give us an idea. What do you think happens in the end?
My crystal ball is that it will happen. I just think there is so much momentum for this on the Democratic side. I know my Republican colleagues aren't going to vote for it, but they do want to see the bricks and mortar part of the infrastructure pass. And so that was the deal. And so we need to follow through on that.
All right, let's shift on to a busy day there in California for you with the recall.
Yes.
Not for you in particular, but for the governor there. The San Francisco Chronicle saying it isn't a done deal. And essentially, polls are suggesting otherwise, Congresswoman. I don't need to tell you that, but Democrats had to bring out their biggest guns. Do you think there's anything to this warning here?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think we've learned for the past few cycles that you cannot take anything for granted. But I am optimistic. I've seen the momentum pick up. You know, the biggest fear we had a few months ago was that Democrats really weren't taking it serious. But I think that Larry Elder helped us. I certainly know in the Los Angeles area, and in particular in the Black community, we're very familiar with Larry Elder. He's been around attacking everybody under the sun for at least the last 2.5 decades that I personally am aware of.
So even if Gavin Newsom wins here, Congresswoman, is there a lesson to be learned? Maybe follow your own policies, live by your own mandates, the things that got him into this trouble to begin with, perhaps?
Well, sure. I mean, I think that he made mistakes, and I think that he certainly has regrets over that. The question is, does he need to be removed from office for that? So the big lesson to me is we need to reform this recall process. You know, this is the 6th attempt to recall him. We have recalls going on over 60 across the state. We're almost spending $300 million on this recall. 9 months from now, he's up for re-election. Right. If you don't like the governor, don't vote for him in June.
Well, we are all watching to see what happens tonight. And Congresswoman Karen Bass, a Democrat of California, it's so great to have you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Want more perspective now on today's recall election from Lanhee Chen, California State Controller candidate and former Mitt Romney policy director. Lanhee, it's always good to see you. Democrats outnumber Republicans almost 2-1 in this state. So what's with this Chronicle's warning?
Well, look, these elections come down to who turns out, and it's a question of enthusiasm. And for many months, the enthusiasm was on the side of those who wanted to recall Gavin Newsom. Now, whether it actually ends up being that way or not, we'll see when the results are in tonight. But when you have a short-term election like this over a very compressed period of time, the big question is who's actually going to show up to vote the governor out of office or keep him in office. And really, that's going to determine the outcome tonight, is what turnout looks like. So far, the Democrats had the early advantage in terms of mail-in balloting. The Republicans are doing well in terms of day of voting. We'll see where the results come out tonight.
How much, Lonnie, do you think this is a preview of what's to come next year in the midterms? Trump Republicans at the center, vaccines at the center, and claims of election fraud already, we heard, before the election day today.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think fundamentally, I heard what Congresswoman Bass said. She thinks the big takeaway from this is that the recall process needs to be reformed. I think the big takeaway here is that a lot of Californians are still pretty frustrated about what's going on in this state. I think they see a lot of the challenges that we face. Maybe they're not prepared to recall Gavin Newsom now, but I do think that they're looking to some kind of change around, for example, how we're addressing homelessness or the wildfires or the many different crises and issues we have in California. So I don't exactly know what the key issues will be when we get to next year, but I can tell you that I don't think the key lesson here is that we need to reform the process. The key lesson here is that people want some kind of change, and we'll see what that looks like next year.
Larry Elder hasn't committed to accepting the results, although today he hinted that he would because he said he's going to win. Is this something you think we're going to see, this play out of the Trump playbook, suggesting, in his words, that there will be shenanigans? Again, is this something you think will be a message the Republicans use moving forward?
Well, I don't think it's a winning message if that's the message. Look, I think we have to do what we can to instill faith and confidence in the democratic process. And, you know, the rules are what they are. A lot of people have issues with the way the rules are drafted here in California. They have issues, for example, with full-time permanent mail-in voting. I think those are fair issues to raise. But those are the rules we're playing by, and everybody's got to play by the same rules. So the notion that somehow we're going to attack the process every time we think we're going to lose, that is a losing strategy. That is not a strategy that I personally embrace. It's not one that I think is a great look for the Republican Party or for any political movement going forward.
Well said. Newsom hang on tonight, Lonnie? Yes or no?
I think it's going to be a close. I think he will. I think he'll hang on.
All right. Lonnie Chen, it's great to see you, California State Controller candidate and Hoover Institution fellow as well. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
New reports have restaurants closing down due to the Delta concerns. Is it deja vu for the industry? We'll ask a top chef if he's planning to close his doors next. COVID-19 continues to cause problems for restaurants and bars, so much so fast food chains, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, and Wendy's are either slowing the reopening of their dining rooms or closing them altogether. You might say maybe you'd rather pick up or use the drive-thru when you're dining at some of those fast food chains. However, the problems don't stop there for the industry. Bars and restaurants lost 41,500 workers in August, the largest decline of any sector, according to the Labor Department. Certainly hard to open a dining room if you don't have workers. For more, I want to welcome in our friend, Chef Andrew Gruel, founder of Slapfish Restaurant. Chef, it's good to have you back. There's a lot to go at here. Let's start with where you are right now on indoor dining. Are you worried about having to close down again?
Yeah, I think I'm always worried about having to close down again just because of the unknown, right? And we always hear whispers about the fact that there's going to be X, Y, or Z coming in the future and that they see spreads here and there. So it's always something that's now built into our projected framework.
So I just saw that number too, 41,500 workers in August. How are you doing on the workforce side of it? Are you having enough? Are you finding, you have locations all around the country. Are you finding enough people to work?
Depends on the location. Certainly in states like California, New Mexico, some of the states that suffered some of the harder lockdowns, we're having more trouble finding workers. You know, frankly, because I believe that a lot of the workforce still thinks maybe they're going to get shut down again, so they're apprehensive about going back in. And we've also been slower to kind of reopen, so we're a couple months behind, if you will.
So I know that you're not a fan of the plastic dividers, but what are you doing in your restaurants, and what can restaurants do to try to reassure diners?
Well, I think first and foremost, restaurants really need to have their own program when it comes to testing and tracing and making sure that their own team members are safe and healthy, right? Because it's not just spread from diner to diner. It could theoretically be spread from the workforce back and forth to the diners. So always make sure that you've got that in place. At our restaurants, we give everybody unlimited paid time off. You know, if they're feeling sick, if they think they crossed somebody who is sick. And because of that, we haven't had any internal spread. On the outside of the restaurant, I think it's important to at least be spacing things a little bit further apart. By no means should we be shutting down indoor dining, but, you know, just making sure that we're at least aware and sensitive to how close diners are to one another.
Are you making adjustments, Chef? I know we talked with a chef in Dallas the other day who had brought in like 3 robots to help transport food from the kitchen out into the dining room. Are you doing anything like that?
Well, you know, robot technology in my neck of the woods is still a little bit behind, so we haven't necessarily gone full automation. But I do think that there is a mechanization that's going to take place in the restaurant industry where we're going to start to see a lot of, you know, ordering through the kiosk and ordering through various apps to decrease the units of labor and the human interaction.
All right. I'm just looking at your website here before we went on the air. Man, this real fish sandwich, I'm getting hungry. When are you coming to Chicago? How come you don't have a restaurant here?
Well, you know, Illinois is a tough state when it comes to registration for franchises, but hopefully soon. And when I do, I'll make sure that I got that sandwich with your name on it.
Deal. Chef Andrew Grew, it's always great to see you. Founder of Slapfish Restaurant. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
People say, I've already had COVID, I'm protected, and now the study says maybe even more protected than the vaccine alone. Should they also get the vaccine? How do you make the case to them?
You know, that's a really good point, Sanjay. I don't have a really firm answer for you on that.
That was Dr. Anthony Fauci, who has essentially become the man with the answers over the course of the pandemic. But when asked about natural immunity to COVID-19, that wasn't the case. Joining me now is a doctor who's been asking the same question, Dr. Hooman Noorchasm. He's a physician, immunologist, and public health advocate. Doc, it's great to have you. This has been one of my questions, too. It's why I wanted to get you on. So if you've had COVID, do you need a vaccine? That's the question here, and you say it's a key element that's been sort of overlooked here.
Well, absolutely. Look, here's the thing. I think Dr. Paul Offit said it best a few weeks ago in a public interview. The reason why we know this vaccine was going to be effective against COVID is that the natural infection itself, the virus itself, the immunity that the virus itself induces, it was actually effective at protecting against reinfection. And frankly, the CDC, the NIH, all the folks at Operation Warp Speed knew this. So this idea that now we're in the middle of a pandemic, we have about 80 to 100 million people who've been naturally infected, and now we're veering in the direction of these draconian mandates that require people who already are immune at risk of loss of employment and livelihoods to get force vaccinated. I think it really is a terrible sign of how far away the Biden administration is veering from the science.
Right. So
I'm all for immunity mandates.
What does the antibody test tell us, Doc? If you have antibodies, do you know how many antibodies you have or what the level is compared to what you'd have if you got the vaccine?
Look, the antibody test is sort of the serological gold standard for immunity. So, for example, you know, in the past couple of years, I had the opportunity to go get credentialed at the Philadelphia VA hospital. You know, I didn't have my vaccination record, so I went down to occupational health. They drew my antibody levels, and it was just really a binary answer. In reality, I think that the vast majority of naturally infected people, you know, who've had the infection are going to be protected, especially if they have the antibodies. Now, the levels can be worked out, but in truth, right now, the efficacy of the vaccine itself is veering somewhere between 10 to 30%. As we know, the mRNA vaccines are about 10% ineffective. J&J is about 30% ineffective. So you're talking about a 10 to 30% inefficacy rate. The natural infection is going to be at least as good as that. So really, I think the issue here is we got to encourage people to get vaccinated, and we got to encourage the Biden administration to not veer in the direction of forcing people at the cost of losing their livelihoods to get the vaccine if they're naturally immune.
So that's what I mean.
I do think there's a place for immunity mandates.
If you have tested positive and you have antibodies and you get the test to show that you have antibodies, is that something you can do if you're vaccine hesitant, you don't want to get it, and you think you've got enough antibodies as you would have if you've gotten the vaccine? Should you get the antibody test to know when, in fact, your antibodies are gone, so then you should get the vaccine?
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, that's what most European countries are doing right now. The European Parliament came out with their vaccine passport, criteria, and one of them is evidence of COVID recovery or evidence of antibodies. So really, this is a low virulency virus. The natural infection and convalescence from a natural infection does serve a very, very strong protective role. All the epidemiological data right now is pointing to the fact that level of immunity is at least as good as full vaccination in COVID-naive people. So really, fundamentally at the crux of this right now is, and some of the vaccine mistrust and hesitancy that's being caused has to do with the fact that the Biden administration is really pushing on this idea of mandated vaccination, especially in naturally immune people. I think this is really a destructive policy, and we got to sort of ratchet down on it a little bit and relieve people a little bit of the fears about losing their employment, educational opportunities, et cetera. Right. Really, the temperature's got to come down a little bit.
Because there are a lot of reasons for it, Doc, that's for sure. Hey, I don't know whether you saw, but in Florida, there was a chiropractor who was handing out waivers. As an immunologist, I'm wondering what you think of scenes like this where people are lining up to get a chiropractor to sign a waiver for them.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily appropriate. I don't want to disparage any of my colleagues in any branch of medicine, but look, I think it's reasonable if someone has had a COVID infection, has serological evidence of immunity, and they don't want to, get the vaccine for whatever personal reasons, not to have them be forced and to be coerced essentially into getting the vaccine at risk of loss of their employment. But I think there is some evidence that there's some marginal benefit to getting back an added vaccination if you've been infected. And if people want to enjoy that benefit, they should feel free to do that. It just shouldn't be mandated. Certainly, I do think that if people are not immune, and especially in public engagement settings, it's in their best interest and in the best interest of our country for them to go ahead and get vaccinated. Doc, so I don't think immunity mandates are inappropriate.
I'm up against the clock, but I want to get you on this in just, if you can, 20 seconds. Why are we not, with the level of people vaccinated and the level of people who've been infected with COVID, not closer to herd immunity?
Look, I think we're pretty close. I think the reality is this virus is a low virulency virus, and I think that 90 to 95% is where we're going to see herd immunity. Now, a lot of the vaccinated folks, as you know, are not going to be fully immune, and I think we have about 100 million people who have been naturally infected. So I think we're pretty close, but the one thing that we can do at this point is to start systematically screening the population. So I really would urge the FDA and the CDC and the Biden administration to adopt a policy of screening and making it liberally available to people to get screened for antibodies. This is an important piece of personal information.
It absolutely. I'm glad we were able to get you on. Dr. Houman Noorchasm, thanks for lending your voice to the program tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Appreciate it.
Going the extra mile, or in this case, 1,200 miles in our American Snapshot, why this father's walking from Maine to North Carolina barefoot. And tonight we say goodbye to comedian Norm Mcdonald, the 1990 Saturday Night Live star and Weekend Update anchor, has died of cancer. Known for his deadpan humor, a sharp tongue, and often pointed political jabs, McDonald was fired from SNL after repeated jokes about O.J. Simpson's acquittal. Co-star Adam Sandler said on Twitter, "Every one of us loved Norm. He was the most fearless and funny original guy we knew. An incredible dad, a great friend, a legend. Love you, pal." Comedian Conan O'Brien adding, "I'll never laugh that hard again. I'm so sad for all of us today." Norm Mcdonald, funny man, movie star, writer, and father, dead tonight after a 9-year battle with cancer at the age of 61. How far would you go for your child? It's our American Snapshot tonight, and for that, we're going to take you to Maine. Chris Branigan. The answer for him was 1,200 miles. He's walking from Bar Harbor, Maine, through 12 states to North Carolina, and he's doing it barefoot to raise awareness and experience a portion of the hardship his daughter is facing. Hasty's 9 years old, has a rare genetic condition, and it's part of a charity event here. They raised about $62,000 so far. He's hoping to get to North Carolina in 53 days. Here's to the love of a father. And that's our time. Leland's next with On Balance.